Dear white people, the minimum requirement of black friends needed to not seem racist has just been raised to 2. Sorry.
If there is one show we could convince you to watch, it would be the Netflix series called Dear White People. This is because it is so underrated, yet so good at the same time. And now, it is making a comeback for a 4th season. Let's take a look at why this season will likely change everything about the show. Before we start, subscribe to our channel for daily videos of your favorite shows and movies. What will change in Dear White People Season 4? The show talks about life on a college campus, mixed in with the new era of social media, and all the drama that comes from racial division. The series' 3rd season was released in the late summer of 2019. The show originally was adapted by Justin Simien from a film he had made earlier with the same name. The show turned out to be razor sharp in many aspects we didn't quite think of. This is because it took the risk that the majority of other films and shows would not even think of going near. And the series just keeps getting better with each passing season. Justin Simien and the whole creative team for the show have focused on creating Dear White People unlike nothing else. The primary thing that separates Dear White People from the majority of shows being released nowadays is the fact that it is an ensemble show. We see this more clearly in Season 3, as it feels like it pulls the story further than it already has from the leading character, who is wannabe filmmaker Sam White, portrayed by Logan Browning. Instead of making the whole story revolve around her, the story slowly began to start focusing on other characters, right at the point where her father passed away. At the beginning of Dear White People, the series would often dedicate one episode per character, but in the last season, they took more of a scattershot approach. This gives the underrated part of the cast members a chance to shine. However, this does sometimes feel like the show has turned into a traditional sitcom in this last season, but if you look closely as the 3rd season progresses, you can see that this scattered narrative is all a way of mirroring Sam's film project from the series. With this being said, the 4th season of Dear White People will most likely follow the same scattered narrative method. Characters that might or might not be part of Season 4 include the faces of Winchester, which are Reggie Green and Marque Anderson. This is because they have not been part of all 3 seasons of the show continuously. They reappeared in Season 3 and were seen dealing with the same struggles and past trauma that they were going through in Season 1. Moses Brown, played by Blair Underwood, tried to persuade Reggie Green to help him with a self-help application he is trying to develop. This will eventually blind him to Brown's failures by the end of Season 3, but we do not see the faces of Winchester staying until the end of Season 4. However, we do know about characters like Joelle, played by Blaine Featherstone, Kelsey, portrayed by Nia Gervier, and Endgame, who is portrayed by actor Justin Patrick, will be back in Season 4 and will continue to struggle to balance their school, love, work, and identity.
Dear white people, wow, y'all really trying it.
So, what is the 4th season of Dear White People all about? The next season will possibly include all kinds of things, and to have a scattershot approach that contains many plot threads. With a lot of things happening at once, Season 4 might get criticism from some viewers when it comes to the way the show keeps up with storytelling. We are presuming since this Season 3 was highly frustrating due to a lot of things happening at once during the episodes. This included the return of Secret Society, which was revealed by the end of Season 2, the TA strike, and the history between the character is inspired by Tyler Perry. But these are just some of the main things that happened during Season 3. There are many other plot threads throughout all episodes, and some of these threads don't connect properly with one another, but they talk more about who gets to tell the characters' stories, who gets to define them, and who gets to tell them who they are. An amazing example of what we're talking about is when Sam said something like, "Tell your story or they will," in the final episode of Season 3. With all that being said, there are many things we are eager to discover that were left unclear by the end of the final episode of Season 3. We might be thinking that this was to leave a lot of doors open for creating the other season, but there were still some things not making sense for us on the show. Despite all this, the show remains confident when it comes to voice and character. What has fascinated viewers the most is how cleverly Simien leaves a message in the show, but also grounds the characters at the same time.
Dear White People is a misnomer. My show is meant to articulate the feelings of a misrepresented group outside the majority.
Guys, you know what this is?
What are Justin Simien's expectations for the show? Justin Simien is the director, writer, and executive producer of the film that eventually inspired the series. In an interview, he claimed that many incidents that happened in the show happened to him while he attended the campus of a university located in Orange, California. At the beginning of making the show, he was more afraid than ever. He claimed that his insecurities were eating him alive about what people might think of his creation. Justin also feared that the show would get a lot of hate and criticism, and that it would be all for nothing. But Justin gladly confirmed that this didn't happen to to him, and the series turned out to be quite successful. Justin has described creating the series as a never-ending marathon. He often gets overwhelmed from working with a lot of people. He even claims to go through blackouts by working overtime just to get the series. A big help for Justin in the creation of this series is Yvette Lee Bowser, who is the showrunner of Dear White People and also the creator of Different World, Living Single, and No Big Deal. The collaboration between the two was still pretty hectic and challenging, and they would often disagree on a lot of things, but it turned out to create an amazing series.
Someone else is running.
Together, we can bring Black back to Winchester.
Who does Sam think she is?
This like Spike Lee and Oprah had some sort of pissed off.
Where did Simeon get his inspiration for the 4th season of the show? The director of the show didn't enjoy going to university, but surprisingly, he managed to make a whole series and movie based on what happened to him during his college years. He has lately confirmed that even season 4 of Dear White People will be mostly based on what happened to him and the students of his classes during their last year. Even though college wasn't his thing, Justin did express that he did get quite a decent education there. The only thing that was challenging for him at first was the fact that he had come from a small town in Houston, Texas. He described that going from that to a huge city with all kinds of different people was hard for him when it came to catching up with the fast life. But something he loved a lot about this big city life was that he met people with similar background and interests as him. The director of this Netflix show claimed that even though there was a lot of people he could build friendships with in California, the university was mostly attended by people he couldn't connect with. Justin called the school white and a Republican type of school. We are thinking that this is also what inspired the name of the show, Dear White People. He also claimed that many students there hadn't even met an African American before and would be surprised when they met him. This kind of environment made Justin feel unusual during the whole school year. He said that he was also put into many awkward situations. This was all because many of the students weren't aware of his background, and some of them even judged him because they were simply poorly informed about his ethnicity. Justin then took all these situations and mixed them into the series, but not all the happenings in the series and movie were inspired by Justin's experience in the university campus he attended, especially not the blackface party. He explains that the scene was just made up of events he had heard or read about, which were similar. However, the events that happened in Dear White People weren't only inspired by the university Justin attended, he also claimed to put in some things that happened to him throughout his career in the entertainment industry in Hollywood. Even though this might leave you raising your eyebrows, Justin does explain that even though Hollywood has all kinds of people from all ethnicities, the majority of them are still white. This means there were many occasions where Justin was the only African American in the room, and was sometimes caused somewhat of a culture clash. Justin said that he just had to get used to all this and to be very understanding of the people he worked with. The satirical technique in telling the story in Dear White People will continue in season 4. Justin strongly thinks that the satirical technique he uses throughout the whole storyline of the show starts with him seeing himself as the primary audience. He said that he always loved watching movies and shows, and that it was the same thing he wanted when it came to the show he was filming. He just wanted to love it. He also added that the primary thing that makes him love a movie or a show is the way that it provokes an emotional response with the purpose to illuminate something that matters. That is why he used the satirical technique in storytelling when filming and writing Dear White People. So, do you think that season 4 of Dear White People will be as good as the prior seasons? Let us know what you think in the comments. We will make another update about the show the moment we get more news about it. So be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bar to get notified the moment we upload it. We thank you for watching, and remember to stay safe and keep on being amazing.